Here we are at the world famous RISC roof garden. You can just see it really is sitting on top of our roof, one story up here at the back. It's the end of March 2020 and we're 4 days into lockdown, so all visits to the garden are unfortunately on hold until further notice. So here's your opportunity to see what the garden looks like in spring. And it's the first in a series of little YouTubes that we're going to do, just to give you a flavour of how the garden changes over the seasons. So those of you who haven't been to the garden, it was planted almost 20 years ago, 2001, and the idea was that we're going to create a demonstration permaculture garden, just to show people ways in which they could make their lives more sustainable, and also as an outdoor classroom, just so that we could extend all our work with teachers, with schools, showing them how they could bring the outdoor classroom into the curriculum. So you get a sense of what we mean by a forest garden. It really does look like a designed forest. So here you can see our canopy layer would be that big edible cherry. That arrived about 4 foot high, and its trunk was just a little finger's width. So just what you'd get from a nursery, a 2-year-old sapling, and you can just see how that has really matured over the last 20 years. And it's important to remember that this is all growing on just 1 foot, i.e. 30 centimetres of substrate, of soil. So everything you see here, all that amazing growth, is on a foot of soil. So that's the really surprising thing about this forest garden, is that it's all growing on a very, very shallow substrate. So those of you who are constrained by not having any real soil, you might have just a sort of tarmac school garden or something like that, then, you know, don't lose hope that this kind of planting, this kind of amazing diversity of planting is possible just on a foot of soil. Obviously some trees would do a whole lot better if it was a bit deeper, and certainly for the future, if we ever did another roof garden, then we try and build that into the design and find out from the engineers what we could get away with. So you can get an idea of the site. It's about 200 square meters, 32 meters by 6, so it's a very sort of elongated site, a bit like a back garden, I guess, or an allotment. So that's 200 square meters, and we've packed in about 180 different varieties and species of edible or useful plant. And you can see that the designer, who's a local permaculture designer, Paul Barney, he sort of made use of, or worked with, these skylights, which you can see, which are part of the original structure, because below we have our hall, where we have all kinds of events going on. So his design had to take in this sort of legacy of the existing building. So the other interesting thing about this roof garden is that it's a retrofit. So, you know, it's a whole lot easier to do something like this if you've got a new build. And the challenge is, how can you do it on existing building stock? And you can see that he's made a virtue of having to negotiate all these skylights, this winding paths, these intersecting winding paths, because one of the principles of permaculture is to really increase the edge between different kinds of planting, between different kinds of ecosystems, because that's where you get increasing diversity and interest. So now we're coming on to the area which gets the most sun. This is where we've got a lot of our Mediterranean herbs. So here you can see the rosemary's coming into flower, and also the jostaberry. So those of you with kids, this is ideal. It's a thornless gooseberry. and absolutely delicious fruit. So this time of year we've just had a whole week of really fantastic weather, and that's really bumped things on, because although in a way here we have underfloor heating for our garden, so it means that things do tend to come a bit earlier, but this fantastic weather which we've had recently has really brought things on. So you can see that here we've got the Korean snow pear, a bit sour, but is great in pie, so that will come small fruit later on in the year. And then you can also see here the kiwi, Chinese gooseberry. So actually it was very canny of the New Zealanders to kind of hijack that plant and make it their own. But that's a hardy variety that will go down to -15 and is ideal for climbing up ugly fences or climbing up through some of your other trees. And then you can see the Mahonia there, so Oregon grape. Those grapes are actually edible. And you can also get an idea here of some of the other virtues of a forest garden, that it gives you year-round interest. So here there's a lot of edible evergreens, which give you year-round interest, and there's something which you can harvest all the year round. So for example, this is a spiny pepper plant. This comes from Nepal. It has relatives. So over here we have a Chinese relative, the Sichuan pepper, which isn't evergreen, but this one you can see it's got fantastic winter colour, and those leaves are very lemony. That's a lovely sort of citrusy flavour which you can give to your baked fish. And you can just see the red peppercorns, so they're left over from the last autumn, which is when they should be harvested, and that's one of the ingredients of Chinese 5 spice. So you know, you can get your harvest your leaves and your peppercorns almost the whole year through. And then over there along that fence, which is made from locally coppiced hazel, you can see another one of my favourites. So this is Japanese Stauntonia, and you can just see it's coming at the end of March. It's coming into flower, and the scent of this is a bit like jasmine, so it's a really fantastic sort of scented hit that you'll get early in the year. It's evergreen and is ideal if you want a green wall. So if you want that kind of insulation for keeping your building warm in winter and cool in summer, so it's like having a thatch on the side of your building, then Japanese Stauntonia is something to go for. You do need a trellis, but the advantage is that unlike ivy, it won't pull out your mortar. And then over here we've got, just coming now, you can just see the shoots of the Japanese wineberry. So this, if you like soft fruit, this is an absolutely fantastic thing to go for. You can see it's got really great ornamental value with those pink sort of furry stems, and then underneath you see it has this lovely sort of silvery underside to the leaves. So fantastic ornamental value as well as good value in terms of the soft fruit. And then you can see all the other sort of things which are coming now. So a permaculture garden, a forest garden, not only ticks the boxes of being productive year round, relatively low maintenance, but it also looks great. You can see there, just through there, the blossom of the Juneberry. This is a really fantastic, very, very productive tree from North America. It fruits in June, hence the name. Amelanchier, there's a lot of different varieties of Amelanchier. You can see it looks absolutely gorgeous in the spring. See those lovely sort of new leaves just coming out, as well as the blossom. And then the fruit tastes a bit like raisins in June. So it has fantastic autumn colour. So if you think of New England in the fall, then that's the kind of look you'll get from this plant. Planted a lot as an ornamental, and most people don't realise that it also has edible uses. And then just beyond that, you can see how our understory, our ground cover, is just beginning to flower. So it looks a bit like a bluebell would, and that is three-cornered leek, Allium trichocum. So that's really interesting because the leaves have three sides. It does look like a bluebell, and those flowers are edible, used to garnish in a salad, and the leaves you can use them like spring onions. And they make a fantastic pakora as well. So if you mix that with some garam flour and deep fry it, absolutely delicious. And here you can see we have the wild garlic ransoms that are going to come soon. These are absolutely delicious with the new shoots of nettle to make a very nutritious soup. At this time of year you need something to perk you up. So you can get an idea here of what a forest garden looks like. It's sort of multi-layered. So you can see the ground cover, the three-cornered leek. You'll see these small trees. So here we have the quince, so what the owl and the pussycat took on their pea green boat. Absolutely delicious fruit in the autumn. And that makes really great quince cheese, so you can turn it into like a fruit leather, or poach it with cardamoms. Really fantastic. Goes well, mixes well with cooking apples. And then next to it we have another small tree. This is the medlar. So this comes from the Caucasus and is great value. So fantastic blossom, starting off white, turning pinkish as the blossoms age, and then in the autumn, so this is, you know, great late harvest, starting October, November, the fruit is ripe, ready to make sorbets, ice cream, as well as chutney. So really good value. And then next to it you can see another evergreen. That's the loquat. So this comes from China. It likes long hot summers. So with climate change, this is a fruiting tree which may well come into its own. So this has superb scented flowers very early in the spring. So if you get a warm February, you'll get some absolutely fantastic scent in your garden. And next to it we've got the black bamboo, Phyllostasis nigra. So that has all the fantastic virtues of bamboo. Looks great. You can beat children, feed your panda, and also get the shoots. You just boil them up, get rid of the bitterness, and you can see here the combination, which is one of my favourites, where you combine the black stems of the bamboo with the wild garlic. So when those flower, you get these sort of bursts, starbursts of white against the black stem. So another sort of aspect that people often forget about in forest gardens is that, you know, they look great. And so all the talk there is now about forest bathing, about spending time in forests just to commune with nature, to just sort of, you know, get in touch with the forest hunter-gatherer in you, then this kind of planting is the perfect way to get production, get outcomes, get output at lots of different levels. And this is another evergreen, so if you're thinking of planting a box hedge, don't. Put in Ugni mollini. This is Chilean guava. You can treat it like a box hedge, but you get delicious, strawberry flavoured, very delicious fruit. It's supposed to have been one of Queen Victoria's favourites. And then you can see how here we've cordoned, so we've planted various fruit trees close together, so they're basically being pruned so they become two-dimensional, and this way you can get lots of different varieties of fruit, so you can stagger your harvest. So instead of having one great huge standard fruit tree and you're completely buried under that fruit and can't possibly eat enough of it, this way you can have smaller harvests right throughout the season. And here this lovely blossom of our plum. So you can see how Mary has tied down the tips so they bend down, and that stimulates the fruiting spurs so that we increase the harvest. So these are all the little ways in which you can play with nature, that you can trick nature in order to get greater productivity, both the pruning and then also how you train the plants. And here, this is one of my favourites, another neglected one. This is the strawberry tree, another evergreen, superb colour, the bark, sort of cinnamony coloured bark, evergreen, and delicious fruit in the autumn. And it's a great pollinator. It has lovely flowers, look a bit like heather, and they attract the bees. So a great pollinator as well as good ornamental value, and a decent sized tree. I mean, can grow to 8 meters or so. So remember, this huge tree arrived as a tiny little sapling 20 years ago, and this is all growing on 30 centimeters of soil. So hopefully that will give you just an idea of what you would have seen if you'd have come to one of our open days. And just one last treat, going into our greenhouse. So this is where we overwinter some of the less hardy plants, and there you can just get a glimpse of a couple of our lemons. So it's quite interesting that there are now there are some nurseries in France that are selling hardy citrus. So if those of you who want to grow your own ingredients for a G&T, then that's something which you can grow your own. So we'll be doing these right throughout the year, so just so that you get a sense of how the forest garden develops through the seasons and provides that year-round interest that I keep on about.